Hey everyone, welcome back to our page. I'm providing here another video for you guys. I'm going to be actually continuing the conversation that I did last week about Airbnb properties, what it's like to invest, but on this one, we're going to be analyzing and seeing what it takes and if the deal is right for you. So let's get into it. Now, when looking into Airbnb properties or short-term rental investments, there are three major topics that you need to dive into and analyze before making that purchase. Now, that includes the costs that are going to be monthly and the initial cost to get the property. There is going to be the income. What are you projected to make every month out of that property? And the last thing is the analysis. What is going to be your return on your money and when you expect to get your money back that you initially put in. So these are all topics we're going to dive into. So let's start with the first. All right, the first topic that we're going to be going into is the cost. And that is something that you need to determine: how much money do I have put aside and how much am I willing to put into a project. Remember, if you don't have the capital, you can always partner up with people to make sure you can execute on a deal that you really want. So the upfront cost is the first thing out of the two costs. So you have upfront cost and then you have your monthly cost. So we're going to go into the upfront cost. You have your down payment, which if you're doing an investment property like this, you want to budget for 20% down on a project like this. Then you have, your closing costs that are involved. Usually you can calculate about 2 to 3% on closing costs. And then you have, okay, now you got to go and furnish the property. Usually if you're in a big short-term rental area, some properties will come furnished, but maybe you might not like the bed that's there or the couch, or you want a bigger TV because you think it might look better. So you have to budget in what furniture, what upgrades do you want to make the property, really stand out and to your desirable look. Also, are you going to input things like a Netflix account? Are you going to put, all these things you have to budget really ahead of time. And then also any fixtures that may need, if you want to upgrade a bathroom, if you want to upgrade a kitchen, those are things that you'll have to do some budgeting on the side. But as far as like the down payment and the closing cost involved, usually we can get a pretty good ballpark number initially. All right, the next thing that you really have to look at and really determine is your monthly cost. Okay, you're gonna have your, what I call the PITI, which is your principal, your interest, your taxes, and insurance. That's like the main four core of your monthly cost. And usually you can get a pretty good estimate through your lender, or even the analysis that we do, we can get a pretty good estimate of what it's gonna be on the property that you're looking at. The next thing, and especially when running Airbnb properties, you're going to be incurring more monthly costs than you would if you just bought it and rented out to someone. So these include, are you going to set up that Netflix account, for them to have every month? You're going to have to pay for all the utilities, so all the water, electric. Are there HOA fees part of that community, or are you buying a condo, depending on what avenue you're going? Then cleaning fees. And usually, if you're in a vacation spot, you'll probably average, 4 cleanings a month because people stay around a week. And then maintenance that will come up, just standard maintenance to where you gotta, supply toilet paper, you gotta supply, soaps and, dishes and stuff like that. If a dish breaks, you gotta replace it. So all those little maintenance things that you have to really budget and make sure that the property is fully furnished and that it's operating, and things will happen. So you have to set aside a little bit of money in order to replenish those things. Also, one more thing to look at is the management of it. Is it outside of your area, or do you have a full-time job and you're too busy to where, you need to have someone manage, your bookings, manage your property? If you do that, you're looking at a decent percentage that you're going to allocate towards that management fees from your income every month. So that is also something to determine. I recommend, if you can, to self-manage, but that can take a lot of time, and it's not going to be really a passive income play. It's going to be a little bit more active. So that's something to really consider and kind of shop around and see what is the best management play for you. All right, the second point, and honestly the most important, is the income. What are you gonna make? So when looking at Airbnb properties, you can go on Airbnb and look in the community, and that's the first thing I say to do. If you have a community or a specific property that you like, go on Airbnb.com. Look in that community, see what the rates are, see how they're doing, go check the calendars of those listings in the community. Are they booked? See what, months are usually more booked than others. You can really get a good feel out of what they're making. But also consider that if it's in season, you might see some really high rates and, oh my God, I can make all this money. But during the slow seasons, remember, those rates will go down. So although you might see a price tag right now, just consider what time of year is it? Is it in season? Is it off? So you can get a good idea. The next two websites that I highly recommend for doing analysis, but don't get too caught up in the analysis, but it's just to give you a good idea, is AirDNA. You can type in addresses and it'll give you approximate what a 3-bedroom in this area is supposed to make, based on the analysis of other properties, so you can get an idea of what it'll make for the whole year. And then Rabbu, RABBU, is another website that you can go on. You type in your address, you type in how many bedrooms and everything it has, and it'll give you all the properties with the same exact dynamics and what they're making on a monthly basis. So that gives you a really good idea if you're gonna make money, how much money you're gonna make, and if your goal is just for it to pay for itself, well, at least you can make sure that it pays for itself. Also, when looking at these websites, I think it is very important to observe, and AirDNA gives a little bit better numbers and projections on this, is the occupancy rates. So as I mentioned, you have seasons. So if you're looking, in South Florida, for example, our season is, really from November to mid-April. So you're gonna see high occupancy rates, and then it drops down as the summer goes along because it gets hot here. But at the end of the day, you're still near the beach, so you still should be able to get some people, but it's not going to be those high, 90% occupancy all year round. So when doing your analysis, make sure you're looking into the occupancy rates and the seasonality of that area so you understand. Okay, the last part is analysis, and these are the nitty-gritty numbers of, okay, what are you gonna make, when are you gonna get your cash back and everything. And depending on your goals will depend on how the analysis goes. So for someone who really just wants to park their money in a property and, have it pay for itself, and that's honestly their goal, they don't care if they see any income at the end of the month, then making sure when you add up your monthly cost and then you have your projected income, it should be a range that it's going to pay for itself. If that's your goal, then if you see that, great, go ahead and purchase it and go forward. Or maybe you really want it as a second home and you might use it for a month out of the year, but the other 11 months you want to rent it out on Airbnb, keep it in nice condition, and have it pay for itself. Or if you're looking at this as purely an investment, then let's get into some of those numbers, which the first one, and I think the most important, especially when looking at Airbnb properties, is your cash on cash return. That return is, okay, if you put $50,000 into this whole project, when are you going to get back that $50,000? So let's say, for example, if you are going to have your monthly cost, of $3,000, and that includes everything. If you're going to be making, let's say, $4,000 projected in income, then you should make $12,000 a year. Does that make sense? So if you're bringing home $12,000 at the end of the year and you put in all in, 50 grand, by the time you furnish it and everything, let's say 60 grand, then you should be projected to get back all the money that you invested in it in about 5 years. And that 20 to 25% is usually pretty good. Like an excellent one is like 33, where you get back your money in 3 years, but with the inflated prices and everything appreciating and going up, it's really harder to find that. So if you can find something between, 15 to 25, let's say within that range, then usually right now it's still a pretty good deal. So that's something to definitely look at, and it's my first metric that I look at when evaluating a property. Now, the next one that we're going to be looking into is the cash flow, and that pretty much aligns what I was just mentioning. So let's say you have your all-in costs at 3,000 and your income is projected at 4,000, where you're going to be cash flowing 1,000 a month. So even if you're not worried about maybe getting your money back, but you're projected to get it back in 5 years, well, you're going to be making about 1,000 a month. So, does that align to where you're trying to look for? Does that meet your goals of what you're trying to get into real estate for? So that's more of a personalized one as far as the cash flow. Now, those are the major two metrics that I use. I look at the cash flow and I look at the cash on cash return. If those look pretty good, then it's a deal that I would want to go in and want to go forward with. So I hope that helps give you some clarity, and maybe it gives you some actionable items to go and do. If you want, what I highly recommend is going and searching for a property online and going through an analysis like this. And seeing what the numbers are, seeing if it makes sense, and then you can further go down the road of maybe getting that first Airbnb property, investment property, or whatever stage that you're in. Now, I do this every single day. I have a spreadsheet that breaks down the cost, what your returns are, all the numbers. If you want me to do an analysis for you, or you prefer, someone to kind of go through the nitty-gritty numbers because maybe you're just not good at it or don't like to do it, I'll be happy to do it. Please feel free to reach out to me at 954-805-6370 or at geibelhomes@gmail.com. We'll be happy to do an analysis for you. Now remember, every day is a good day to buy real estate. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.